If there is one positive thing that can be taken from the events of the last 2 to 3 years, it would be this. It is proven, without a shadow of a doubt, that nobody knows what a day will bring. Nobody has the ability to see the future. Because if I had described for you 3, 4, 5 years ago the situation we were in and how we got here, nobody would have believed me. Nobody would have had it on their bingo card. But in today's video, I'm going to show yet another aspect of something we've been talking about that has never been seen before in the history of mankind. Over at the Patreon channel, we're going to do an adult version of it. And I'll warn you, it's not going to be for the faint of heart. The topic is, in and of itself, a somewhat adult topic. I'm going to try to make it PG-13 here. But really and truthfully, what needs to be spoken of can only be spoken of at Patreon. It's only $1 per month, even less if you sign up for an entire year. The lowest allowable possible level, and fully refundable in the first 90 days. Also, as a bonus over at Patreon, you have an inbox function where you can send me a direct message, and to the very best of my ability, I try to answer questions that I believe are well thought out. I don't answer all of them, and I definitely don't respond to links. But we would love to have you over there. It's it's the discussion that we need to be having in public, but unfortunately, because of the rules of these platforms, we can't. This is about to explode in a way that this country has never seen, but not for the reasons people think. I know people are very dicey about the whole concept of prostitution. In the past, prostitution has largely been driven by demand, meaning, of course, the Johns. Now, it is the other way around, and I have proof for it. There's articles about it. There are fewer and fewer men interested in prostitutes, and a lot more women who have no other choice and need the money badly. This is something that security services and police services are seeing around the globe, and it's starting to work its way into North America. It's not a demand-driven thing anymore by the Johns. In fact, there's an article right out of Florida. I can prove this. Now, real quick, I'm going to answer a question that's tied to this. A couple of videos ago, I talked about this well-known vocal atheist. His name is Seth MacFarlane. He's the voice guy. Very, very talented. Does all the voices on Family Guy. He created this spin-off of Star Trek, or his version of Star Trek, called the Orville. And it's really not bad, given that it's pretty much his entire brainchild. But the very first scene in it, shows him coming back to his apartment, his little tiny apartment, where he shares with his fiancée, and he has the unfortunate experience of walking in on her in bed with this blue alien, played by the actor Rob Lowe. Now, he immediately gets angry and storms off in a huff like a child. Now, I got a little pushback because I said this wouldn't bother an atheist, because adultery is a Christian-specific crime. In fact, there are no synonyms for adultery. I mean, you can say cheating, and you can say messing around, but those don't necessarily mean adultery, which is a specific action. Someone in a married relationship having relations with someone else. So I got some pushback from people that were atheists to say, hey, you don't have to have a religious or moral, a religious or Christian sense to be upset about your partner cheating on you. And they sent me some links about this. Now, here's the important thing to remember about why she was in bed with this guy. And she makes it very clear. The reason she was sleeping with this guy was because he was too attached to his work. And he had withheld sex from her for a long time because he was busy with work. Now, here's what I got from a lot of, and this is tied to prostitution, by the way. Just hang in there. I know this seems like we're going off on a tangent. It's not. It's absolutely connected. This is the quote: "You don't need religion to have morals. If you can't determine right from wrong, then you lack empathy, not religion." Now, how many people out there would say that it's right or wrong? You marry somebody, you get in a relationship with them, and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, you may have your own reasons, you stop having sex with them. See, because the sex is the thing that makes the relationship, right? It's the unique thing. I mean, you can have all sorts of other things in common with other people that you go do that you may or may not do with your spouse. But the one thing that you do exclusively with your spouse is that. It's sex, right? Right. Okay. Now, I want you to think about this saying again clearly. If you cannot determine right from wrong, then you lack empathy, not religion. Now, empathy. If you walk in on your spouse and you're upset because you find them doing that thing you thought was exclusive to you with someone else, what would empathy tell you? Empathy would say, you know what? Oh, you're right. You know what, honey, you're right. I haven't had relations with you in 8 months. We've been together for a year, and, I've just been so busy with work. I have not made myself available to you. This is my fault that you had to turn to somebody else. I apologize. You see, that's what an atheist would say if he believed this. You lack empathy, not religion. But what does he do? He immediately storms off in a huff and doesn't even give her a chance to say a word. Why? Because the religious, remember, this guy says that he's an atheist, that he's irreligious, that he has no attachment to any kind of a Christian moral belief or anything else like that. See, for him, a hard and fast rule had been broken, and he had every right to be angry and be upset. Even though we know, all the way back in the 16th century, pardon my voice, all the way back in the 16th century, if you withheld sex from your wife, she could bring you before a tribunal and make you perform and make you show them that you have the ability to. And it was very humiliating, where they could actually lay hands on you and do things to you, and it was not called adultery in any way, shape, or form. Even the 16th century Catholic Church said that people in relationships, people married like this, they have a marital debt to one another to not withhold themselves from one another. So she would have been very well in her rights seeking a divorce. But wait a minute. Wait. You see, according to him, he's not religious. He has empathy. Empathy would not have stormed off. Empathy would have apologized. Empathy would have said, you know what? This is my doing. I have wrongfully withheld myself from you, and you have sought this event with this other person who is blameless. I can't even say I forgive you, because that would imply that you've done something wrong, and you haven't. I have no reason to be upset. But is that what Seth MacFarlane did? No, he didn't. Now, I know that took up a lot of time. What does it have to do with prostitution? And the idea now that there are a lot more women out there who need money than there are men who need solace. You see, this is the big push toward getting government out of people's lives that's coming, the big red wave, so to speak. Despite hundreds of arrests in Florida, first of its kind sex buyers database lists one person. Pardon me. Do you know why it lists only one person? Because so many of those that they've tried to pick up for picking up a prostitute, for soliciting a prostitute, they're all first-timers. They're all first-timers. These aren't the hardcore types. Month after month, the database remained empty. In Hillsborough County, Florida, the sheriff's office arrested 262 people for soliciting for prostitution. The fact that only one person's database just shows that this concept doesn't actually work. It would, they just don't have the numbers. Why aren't there hundreds listed in the database? Half of these cases go into diversion because they're first-time offenders, so they're not subject. About a quarter of those cases end up pleading to a section that's not captured by the database. They just don't have the numbers of men out there seeking women versus the amount of women seeking men. This is an incredible story. Pandemic hunger forces thousands into sex work, we talked about, in Mexico. Wait until you hear the details of this first story. This is just from last year. Hardships caused by the coronavirus pandemic have forced former sex workers in Mexico back into the trade years after they left. Made it more dangerous and reduced some to having sex in cars or on sidewalks for lack of available hotels because the hoteliers are jacking the rates up. Claudia, who like most of the sex workers interviewed, asked to be identified only by her first name, had stopped working the streets a decade ago after she married one of her former clients. But when he lost his job, the couple fell 4 months behind on rent for their apartment. The only solution Claudia saw was to go back to working the streets. It was an income in order to eat, to pay the rent we owe, who now owes only 1 month back rent. It is hard to come back and see so many of my fellow workers from the old days, my era, going back to do the same thing, to see all the problems out there. Now, what was the collage that I had put together? This is coming to North America. Guy loses job. Only thing that can be found is the wife doing in-calls or out-calls. Not because she's a drug addict, not because she's uneducated, not because they didn't have a savings account, not because of any of this, and not because there's a huge demand for Johns. Where's that article? Hold on. I think I might have lost an article. There's an article out there. Here you go. Nope, I found it. Sex tourists say they're going to Mexico to escape Me Too. They're going to Mexico to escape Me Too. Why in the world? Now here's where it ties in to this thing with the Orville. Hold on, let me find this again. Sorry about this. Here we go. Basically, the story is this. We are frustrated with the system that paints everything a man does as harassment. What men are doing is they are availing themselves of online services, and they're not getting into they're not even pursuing relationships because it's just too risky. You can have your entire world destroyed. You can lose your job if you say the wrong thing or if you approach the wrong woman. So why in the world would you ever get into a relationship one-on-one like this under those circumstances, given everything else that's available out there that doesn't bear any risk, i.e. internet pornography? Last I checked, you cannot get an STD from internet pornography. But if you go actually pursue a woman, try to get in a relationship with a woman, speaking to men out there, you could just say the wrong thing, and that's it. She can put whatever you said or whatever it was online. You might lose your job. You see, this is the glue that shows how backwards things are. Why would you risk a relationship? Why would you risk your job? You'd have to ask yourself this question. Why was he spending so much time at work? And I know this is a make-believe show, but this is something that is emblematic of things that happen in real life, right? If he meets this girl and they hit it off and they get engaged and they're married, and then he starts to pursue his career hardcore to the point where he's neglecting her, why? Why? See, it's the whole, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But you see, with relationships, it ain't quite that easy. I have a regular viewer, regular commenter. I'm sure you'll see her. Her name's Denise. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Heupel. And she talks about all the bikers. She used to talk about it all the time. She lives in North Dakota. That would come up for Sturgis. Pardon me. That would come up for Sturgis. And how disrespectful they were to the women. And how it was so horrible that she'd work over there and this guy would pat her on the butt or that guy would pat her on the butt or all this kind of stuff. Well, guess what, ladies? Be careful what you wish for. Because Me Too has now driven men to the Mexican border seeking prostitutes. And there's a huge, huge amount of them everywhere. Why? They need the money. They need the money because of what's going on with the economy, because of the drive to get rid of social services, because social services are evil, terrible, horrible socialism. Shh. See, this is going to be the heritage, the legacy of the red wave. The mass return to sex work, cheap sex work in North America. Just because of the numbers. Just because of the numbers. And this, you can moralize and pontificate all you want about a woman trying to feed her family or keep from being homeless. So she goes out and she takes whatever money from whomever to pay her bills. And you can say, well, that's wildly immoral. You could also say that this woman here, sleeping with some other person behind her fiance's back, that's immoral. But depending on the context, well, he hadn't made himself available to her in 6 or 8 or 9 months or whatever. You'd be on the side of the Catholic Church at that point 500 years ago. Men used to have to be able to prove that they could do what was necessary to be with. See, that was the thing about the relationship. It's the thing that makes a relationship a relationship. Nothing else does. People wonder, Florida Monkey, why do you talk about this subject so much? Because if you don't think it's going to be the most important thing when the lights go out or when things go bad, the relationships between men and women, it has been a bellwether since Bible times. when God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah? What was the reason? Given, largely. In fact, we use the term sodomite because of it. The days of Noah. Sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair. What do you think that means? David and Bathsheba. Rahab. Samson and Delilah. Go right through the Bible. If you think this is a wildly wrong topic to talk about because it's just not right or moral, people need to be talking about this and need to be getting prepared. Am I going to be a finger-waggling Pharisee where I judge people? And I, keep in my mind, okay, well, that person's going to hell, and that person's not, and that person, well, not sure yet, but he's for sure going to hell. She's for sure not, because, are you that person? You see, if you're that person where you're keeping a tally, you might want to rethink that. Because it's a great argument that you could have. If a man and a woman get together in a relationship and things are hunky-dory and then something happens and there's no relations, does that give one person or the other free rein to go find something else? And if not, how does that jive with the 16th century Catholic Church saying that, men should be subject to this? I'll give you the link to this again. It's kind of a graphic article. I don't want to read too much of it. But you basically, anything that could be done to get the man into the state that he would need to be to consummate a marriage, that could be done by anyone that was not his wife at these tribunals. Anything to prove that he had the ability to. No such equivalent thing, to my mind, ever existed. I can't find it if it does, to have that go the other way, where if the woman would have withheld just because she didn't want to, that, she could be brought before a tribunal and have people put hands all over her. No, didn't exist. So, anyway, I will leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. Would love to have you on Patreon. Believe me, we're going to do a version of this that's going to be a little bit more for adults. And we're going to ask a lot more questions about what was really meant by adultery. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. $1 per month. Love to have you over there. We'll see you guys next time.